Jesus decoded. Quantum liberation. Truth hidden in you shall know the truth. For 2,000 years ago, Jesus spoke words that religious authorities transformed into harmless moral platitude. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Billions have repeated this phrase in temples and churches without ever understanding that Jesus wasn't speaking about philosophical or theological truth, but about specific quantum frequencies that dissolve the control grids keeping humanity imprisoned in limited realities. The word translated as truth in the original Greek was aletheia, which literally means non-forgetting, the state of remembering who you really are beyond the layers of programming and dimensional amnesia that define your ordinary experience of reality. Jesus decoded. Quantum liberation. Truth hidden in you shall know the truth. For 2,000 years, Jesus reveals liberation frequency code. Kushta activates my quantum liberation. 777, the Aramaic code of liberation. Gauasata mehara, gonmin esia Buddha. When Jesus spoke to his closest disciples, he didn't use Greek or Latin, but Aramaic, the language that carried within its phonetic structure frequencies capable of activating specific states of consciousness. The phrase, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," in Aramaic is tedaun shrara doble ubsrada. But Jesus used an even more precise formulation in his private teachings preserved in the Nag Hammadi texts, using the word kushta instead of shrara for truth. The word kushta pronunciation, K-O-O-S-H-T-A-H, means not just truth in the intellectual sense, but truth as a living frequency, an embodied state of being aligned with source consciousness beyond the veils of archontic manipulation. When you speak this word correctly, with the emphasis on the first syllable and the guttural kayet sound, you create a vibrational pattern that resonates through your pineal gland and activates dormant capacities for perceiving beyond the narrow bandwidth of programmed reality. This isn't metaphorical language, but describes actual neurophysiological processes that modern science is only beginning to map. The full Aramaic phrase Jesus taught in secret was Te'etede awen kus hatawakus, hatame harakun min sihya Buddha pronunciation, Teton kushta, wuh kushta, meh des, haha des, rar des kun, min shah Buddha. This translates as, "You shall know the living truth, and the living truth shall liberate you from bondage." The crucial addition is min shia Buddha, from bondage, which specifies that the liberation isn't metaphorical or future, but refers to present dimensional imprisonment that can be dissolved through proper activation of consciousness frequencies. Religious authorities who translated these teachings deliberately obscured the technical precision of Jesus' instructions because they understood, perhaps better than most believers, that these practices actually work to free individuals from external control systems. If people can access liberation directly through specific sound frequencies and consciousness practices, what need would they have for intermediaries, for priests and bishops and elaborate theological systems that keep them perpetually dependent on institutional authority? The Gnostic texts preserved what the Orthodox canon deliberately erased. The actual technology of liberation that Jesus came to transmit, the liberation Jesus spoke of, wasn't salvation in some distant afterlife, or reward for correct belief, but immediate freedom from the dimensional prison that archonic entities constructed to harvest human consciousness and emotional energy. The Gospel of Thomas, discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, preserves Jesus' teaching more clearly than the canonical Gospels edited by Roman Orthodoxy. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. This statement reveals that liberation isn't something granted by external authority, but activated from within through remembering and expressing your true nature beyond programmed identity. The Greek word used in canonical Gospels, eleutheria pronunciation, a dash lu dash theh dash re dash means freedom or liberty. But the Aramaic word Jesus actually used was heruta pronunciation, heruta, which carries the specific connotation of breaking chains, dissolving bonds, and escaping from captivity. When you understand that Jesus was describing liberation from actual dimensional imprisonment maintained through frequency manipulation by non-physical entities, the Gnostic texts call Archons. the entire context of his mission shifts radically. He wasn't establishing a new religion, but offering technology for escaping the religion as control system paradigm entirely. The Archons maintained their grip on human consciousness primarily through keeping you tuned to frequencies of fear, separation, scarcity, and limitation. These low-frequency states make you perceive reality through filters that reinforce the illusion of powerlessness and dependence on external salvation. Jesus' teaching of Kushta, living truth as embodied frequency, provides the key to shifting your consciousness out of the archontic frequency range into dimensions where their control mechanisms simply cannot operate. This isn't belief or faith, but physics. Quantum mechanics applied to consciousness in ways that ancient mystics understood experientially, even without modern scientific terminology. The Apocryphon of John, another Nag Hammadi text, describes how Archons created this world as a prison and installed the counterfeit spirit in humans to keep them focused on material reality and unable to perceive the spiritual dimensions where true freedom exists. Liberation, therefore, means activating the authentic spirit, the divine spark within you that exists beyond archontic reach. Modern quantum physics has validated what Gnostic mystics knew millennia ago, that reality isn't a fixed, objective structure but a field of possibilities that collapses into specific manifestation through conscious observation. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that subatomic particles exist in superposition of all possible states until observed, at which moment they collapse into definite state. The radical implication is that consciousness doesn't merely observe reality, but actively participates in creating it through the frequencies at which observation occurs. When Jesus spoke of knowing the truth that liberates, he was describing the process by which you alter the fundamental frequencies through which your consciousness observes, and therefore collapses quantum reality. Most humans operate at frequencies of fear, scarcity, separation, and limitation. Not because these are the only frequencies available, but because they've been programmed since birth to tune exclusively to these narrow channels. This programming is so deep and pervasive that you mistake it for your own nature, your own thoughts, your own limitations. The truth that liberates Kushta in Aramaic is a specific frequency of consciousness that operates beyond the control programming. When you access this frequency through the practices Jesus taught, you begin collapsing quantum reality in ways that violate the rules of the dimensional game in which you were imprisoned. Synchronicities multiply. Apparently solid limitations dissolve, and you discover capacities that conventional programming insists are impossible. The Aramaic phrase for this state of liberated consciousness is Malkathad, pronunciation Malkusa Dalaha, typically translated as Kingdom of God, but more accurately meaning the sovereign realm of divine consciousness. Jesus taught that this realm isn't a location you go to after death, but a frequency you access right now by shifting your consciousness beyond the programmed bent. When he said the kingdom of God is within you, he was giving precise technical instruction. The frequency of liberation exists inside your own consciousness, not in external heaven or future salvation. The mechanism operates through what quantum physicists call observer effect, where the act of observation at specific frequencies literally determines what possibilities collapse into manifestation from the infinite quantum field. Stay until the end to learn the specific Aramaic frequency practice Jesus taught secretly to the Gnostics, capable of activating quantum liberation in your consciousness field within 40 days of daily practice. The Pistis Sophia, a Gnostic text that preserves Jesus' advanced teachings, given after his resurrection, describes the specific practice he transmitted for activating Kushta consciousness and achieving liberation from archontic bondage. This practice wasn't included in canonical Gospels because Orthodox authorities recognized it would make individuals spiritually autonomous, eliminating need for institutional mediation between humans and divine source. The practice begins with breath, synchronized with specific Aramaic sound frequencies that reorganize your bioelectric field. Sit with spine erect but not rigid, allowing energy to flow freely from root to crown without blockages caused by collapsed posture or excessive tension. Place your right hand over your heart and left hand over your solar plexus, creating electromagnetic circuit between your two most powerful energy centers. This hand position isn't symbolic gesture but creates measurable changes in your heart's electromagnetic field, which generates field 60 times stronger than brain. Begin with rhythmic breathing that establishes coherence between heart and brain. Inhale for count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, hold for 2. This specific pattern, preserved in Gnostic texts, creates heart rate variability state that researchers associate with maximum mental clarity, emotional regulation, and access to expanded consciousness states. Continue this breathing pattern for at least 5 minutes until you feel perceptible shift in your internal state, a sense of dropping into deeper presence. Once breathing coherence is established, begin repeating the Aramaic phrase kushta, naharani min shiabuda. Pronunciation kushta, N-E-H harane, min shiabut. This phrase means, living truth liberates me from bondage, and its sonic properties create specific resonance. Patterns in brain structures and endocrine glands, when repeated, synchronize the phrase with your breath kushta nearani on the inhale, min shiabuda on the exhale. As you continue this practice, your conscious awareness naturally shifts from normal discursive thinking to more expansive state of witness consciousness. You begin observing thoughts, emotions, and sensations without identifying with them, creating internal space where higher frequencies can emerge without being immediately suppressed by habitual mental noise. Continue for 20 to 30 minutes, daily for a minimum of 40 days, to establish new neural pathways and frequency patterns. When you practice the kushta activation consistently, initial changes may be subtle but compound in profound ways. Many practitioners report that in first few weeks, most noticeable shift is dramatic reduction in emotional reactivity to situations that previously would completely destabilize them. This happens because coherence you establish through practice creates field of resilience not easily disturbed by external stimuli or archontic transmissions designed to induce fear, anger, or despair. As your practice deepens and kushta frequencies stabilize in your bioelectric field, you begin noticing changes in quality of your daily experience that can only be described as multiplied. Right people appear at perfect moments. Resources you need materialize through unexpected channels, and you develop sense of flow where previously you experienced constant struggle. This isn't luck or coincidence, but direct result of collapsing quantum reality through coherent frequencies rather than chaotic patterns of control programming. The Gnostic texts describe this stage as putting on garments of light, metaphor for transition from operating through conditioned personality to directly expressing essence of unprogrammed consciousness. You don't lose your individuality or become spiritual automaton, but discover layers of authenticity and creative capacity that conventional programming kept dormant. Relationships based on codependency or manipulation often dissolve naturally because frequencies you now embody are incompatible with dysfunctional dynamics. The liberation Jesus promised isn't single event, but continuous, unfolding as you progressively release layers of programming and access increasingly elevated frequencies of consciousness. Each level of kushta you attain reveals deeper layers of forgetting that still need dissolving. This might seem discouraging, but actually is encouraging because it means there's no upper limit to expansion possible when you commit to path of aletheia. The final paradox is that truth which liberates was always accessible within you, not hidden in ancient texts or secret teachings, but obscured by layers of programming that convinced you it was something external you needed to seek. When Jesus sighed, "You shall know the truth," he was pointing to direct recognition of who you always were before forgetting, before accepting imposed limitations, before collaborating with your own imprisonment through belief in narrative of powerlessness and separation. Summary: Jesus' declaration, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," doesn't refer to theological or philosophical truth, but to specific quantum frequencies that dissolve control programming, keeping humanity in limited consciousness states. The Aramaic word Jesus used, kushta, means living truth as embodied frequency rather than intellectual concept, pointing to process of activating consciousness beyond archontic manipulation. The Gnostic texts from Nag Hammadi preserve this understanding more clearly than canonical Gospels, describing Archons as entities controlling humanity through frequency manipulation and the instigation of counterfeit spirit that keeps perception locked in material dimension. Quantum physics validates this Gnostic vision by demonstrating reality isn't fixed structure, but field of possibilities, collapsing into specific manifestation through conscious observation operating at particular frequencies. The liberation Jesus taught operates through reorganization of bioelectric field, which isn't a phenomenon of biological processes, but primary system, through which consciousness organizes matter into coherent patterns. Control programming induces low coherent states through trauma, chronic fear, and mental indoctrination, preventing access to higher consciousness bands where clear intuition and expanded creative capacities operate. The specific Gnostic practice preserved in Pistis Sophia uses body positioning, rhythmic breathing, and repetition of Aramaic phrase Kushta neharani min shia Buddha to create heart-brain coherence, establishing internal state where higher frequencies can emerge without suppression by habitual mental noise. This technique functions independently of institutional intermediaries. Reason it was excluded from canonical Gospels by Orthodox authorities threatened by spiritual autonomy. Transformation through Kushta is continuous process of progressive liberation from programming layers, manifesting initially as reduced emotional reactivity and multiplied as you collapse quantum reality through coherent frequencies. The final paradox is that liberating truth was always accessible within you, obscured only by programming, convincing you it was something external to seek. Liberation Jesus promised isn't future heavenly reward, but immediate present available when you access non-frequencies and directly recognize who you always were before accepting limitations imposed by separation and powerlessness narrative. Subscribe to Jesus Revelations channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss upcoming videos on hidden Gnostic knowledge. If this content resonated with you, leave your like and comment. Kushta activates my quantum liberation. 777. Practice the Aramaic frequency technique daily for 40 days and observe truth frequencies dissolving your dimensional prison. Share this video with those ready to remember who they really are. See you in the next revelation. May the Kushta frequencies restore your non-forgetting and activate the Christ consciousness dormant within you since before time began.